It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, customized designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful gentleman who is the head of Powerful You Creator. He's a award-winning director and coach out of Utah. He's got a book called Perfection Seeing is Not Believing, about the journey of transportation and about two people coming together with different situations and different stories, how they came together. And of course, you know, it's happened when two people were at the rock bottom financially, emotionally, and spiritually, and the story is dedicated to transforming their lives, their inner and outer, into what they are today. And of course, you know, you can also find it at powerful-u.com. And this is just a great story here. So he's got a book out right now and live, ladies and gentlemen, from his comfy office here in beautiful Utah. Ladies and gentlemen, the award-winning director and coach, Powerful You, James Purpura. James, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Mike, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. So you're the Powerful You creator, award-winning director and coach, and you have a book called Perfection Seeing is Not Believing, and you also got a video, you got a website on that. It's about two different lives from birth to adulthood. And before we get into all of that, tell us how you got started.
Well, let me correct you on one thing. It's perception seeing is not believing.
Perfection, I'm sorry.
Perception, yeah. So it's about, you know, and then it's all about personal transformation. So, you know, how we got started is, you know, before I met my wife, my life had hit rock bottom. You know, I was sitting in solitary confinement for some crimes that I committed when I was a homeless drug addict. And, you know, I went on an adventure to recreate my life shortly after getting out of jail. I met my wife, who had as equally as dramatic story as mine. And we decided that we would try to rebuild our lives together and see where we get to.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, that, you know, what moment influenced you into, you know, writing this book and also starting the Powerful You Creator Series? So
the book is really, so here's how I like to explain it, is there's a couple principles that dictate our lives. Most people know what they are. Everybody knows what they are, but few know how they work. And those principles are perception and emotions. So when my wife and I started on this journey, we didn't have anything. We were completely broke, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. We didn't have any information. We didn't have any knowledge. So we set out on our own to figure out what the creative elements of our lives were. How do we create a life that we can love, that we can be proud of? And it took me, from the time I left my jail cell to my first $1 million, was about 9 years.
Wow.
And, yeah, and everybody goes, well, that was a short period of time. To me, it felt like an eternity, right? Because we were working on ourselves. So my wife and I used to sit on our bed every night, talk about issues, talk about perceptions, talk about ideas and concepts on how to move our lives forward. And because we didn't have any information, we had to learn it all by trial and error. And so when we got to the end of our journey, we promised if we ever made it to the top and understood the principles that dictated our lives, then we would share those principles with others. And that's what led us to film a movie, which is called Perception Seeing is Not Believing, and write a book of the same title.
Mm-hmm. And of course, why do we sometimes not see ourselves as others see us?
Well, because the core understanding around perception is that you do not see reality. right? And I think people may or may not know that, and even people who know it don't actually believe it because it feels so real. And so the question is, well, what do we see if we don't see reality? And what we see is our mind's construct of what we think reality is based off our past experiences. And so, that's what it is that we don't actually ever see anything other than what our mind attributes meaning based on our past experiences.
Mm-hmm. And how can we know how others truly perceive us?
Well, the only way is to seek clarity around every conversation, because the way our mind works is that it's constantly working on assumptions. So you're making an assumption about what you think reality is, what people think of you, and those sort of things. And because those assumptions oftentimes are based in fear, we don't follow up with the right questions to seek clarity about what's actually going on. We just assume we see reality, so we decide that's the truth, and then we go about our day, often, without all of the information.
Mm-hmm. And why do some of us seem to be inherently negative and others eternally optimistic? It sounds like two polar opposites.
Well, so so every pessimist I've ever met in my life says the same thing. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist, right? Mm-hmm. Well, here's what the pessimist fails to understand is that their pessimistic view of the world is no more or less real than my optimistic view of the world. But there is a cost to pessimism, and this is what they fail to understand, is that the way your perception works is it works in a limiting view, just like your eyesight. You can, and that view is you can only see what you believe to be possible. And so the less you believe it, the less likely you are to see it. The more you believe it, the more likely you are to see it. So when you think about pessimism and optimism, what happens is negative people close down that field because they're focused on the most negative circumstances. And not only does that makes those circumstances more likely to happen because you focus on the negative, you predict the negative, you act as if the negative is true, and then you get the negative. The good news is, if you're a pessimist, you get to be right. The bad news is you don't get to create the life that you desire. Where positive people keep that field of perception open, and they're open to all kinds of possibilities. So, you can't see an opportunity that you're not aware is there. And so that's what the pessimists are missing, is they're shutting down their field of perception and not seeing all the available information.
And how do we change? And does change always have to be painful?
So the answer is yes and no, right? So we learn through pain as human beings, right? So we have a core program that dictates all of our experience. And that program is that we only can act in accordance with our beliefs based on our current physiological state. And so if we're in fear, we have access to one set of beliefs. When we're out of fear, we get access to the higher part of our brains. We have access to a different set of beliefs. And so the answer to your question is that it's so oftentimes, that we only ever are doing two things. We're deciding whether we're moving towards something or away from something. And the reason we learn through fear is because we trained ourselves that it's like, when the fear of not changing outweighs the fear of changing, right, then we won't change. But when the fear of changing, right, now outweighs the fear of not changing, that's how we move. But the question is, do we have to wait? And the answer is no, because we can decide instead of moving away from things to move towards things.
That is amazing, too. And, of course, we'll talk about you guys' life stories, how this all came together, and about the book and also the Power for You creator version. You're listening to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with James Purpura, the author of Perception Seeing is Not Believing. It's a book and film by James and Stephanie Purpura, whose powerful life stories helps millions master their own journey. Let's talk about the book for just a minute here, too, and, just tell a little bit about the book. And starting off, Chapter 1, which is a crash playing the end game. This is from her perspective as well. And then Chapter 2, from your perspective.
Right. We start with kind of the most dramatic parts of our story, which is me being locked up and her failed suicide attempt, right? And the reason we do that is because what we find is that when you tell your story, that you give people for permission to tell their story. I think so many of us like to believe that or pretend that we're perfect. And I always tell people, I'm like, stop pretending you're perfect, because if you actually accomplish that, then you'd be the only one, right? I don't think anybody imagines that anybody else is perfect. So maybe we should all stop trying to be that way and acknowledge that we've all been through stuff.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, when it comes to the, we saw some of the video as well, too, like with the teacher saying, get up. It's like, saying with, say that, he's got to go to special ed and all kinds of names out there and everything. Do you think a lot of this also involves, when it comes to school from the beginning, having these perceived perceptions, negative and positive, mainly from school, and where else?
Well, and that's just it, is that, it's funny because I ask people all the time, I'm like, hey, got a question for you. I said, if you were to had a really important decision to make, would you hand it to a 5 or 6-year-old and ask them to make it for you? Right? And people tell me, well, of course not. That would be ridiculous. And so my follow-up question to that is, hey, would you like to have better self-esteem? And they're like, well, of course I would. Why? Because it would impact every experience, and my life would be so much better. And I think we can all agree that's true. But here's the question, is that most experts agree that your self-esteem is established by the age of 5 or 6 years old. So if you don't go back and question the beliefs that basically make up your self-esteem, what you're doing is exactly what I said. Because you don't know what memories your perception is accessing to dictate what's going to happen next. And if your self-esteem has so much impact on your life, you're literally handing your important decisions off to a much younger version of you that's based in trauma. And so the answer is that you get it from everywhere, right? We all pick up beliefs about ourselves that are not true, and we never go back and question those beliefs. That's what keeps us stuck.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, there's a thing, too, with, dealing with PTSD, abuse, and addiction and trauma. And, of course, how are those things handled, and, what's to overcome as well, too. This sounds more like a book. It's like where you start to overcome everything. That's what Powerful You Creator is.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we teach people, like overcoming fear. How do you overcome fear? What is the nature of fear? What does it look like? What is the nature of your emotions? What is the nature of perceptions? There's a super easy story I can tell you that would make everybody understand perception on a fundamental level. And let's go through that. So let me ask you a question, Mike. Do you think that you could have the thing that you want most in the world sitting right in front of your face and not see it?
It's just one of those stories that I find as well, too, that being in business for quite some time, it's one of those elements that's missing. And right now I'm getting to experience it, talking to great people like you, interesting people like you, and, talking to many guests. And one of those things where it's like you picture yourself to be something else, but then you end up doing this. A lot of times things actually do work out for the better. It all depends on how you view it. So I have to say this is that I'm enjoying myself right now talking to great people like you and the Mike Wagner Show.
Right. But so we're going to walk through like a fictitious story. So the question is, can you have the thing you want most in the world sitting right in front of your face and not see it?
That happens to be possible. And it's been known to happen a number of times. All
right. So I'm going to give you a story that's going to illustrate the point. So I want you to imagine a man. This man wants more than anything to be loved. He wants to be in a relationship. Right? But he has really, really, really low self-esteem. One day, this man walks into a store He walks up to the counter, and the girl behind the counter starts flirting with him. Does he recognize the girl as flirting with him? What do you?
It all depends that what he's brought up with. In some cases yes, in some cases no.
But I said he had really low self-esteem.
That is probably difficult to say. I would probably say yes to that, because the fact that he's just looking for something or someone to accept him.
So when I tell that story, most oftentimes people say probably not, right? Because he's low self-esteem, he doesn't think he deserves love, so he doesn't recognize it when somebody's talking to them. And so, these types of situations happen. A girl flirts with a guy and the guy doesn't even see it. And the guy turns around, and he walks back to his buddies. His buddies are like, hey, dude, that girl was flirting with you, right? The question is, why didn't he see it? And that's the underlying understanding around perceptions, because I said he had low self-esteem. And so it was like, well, because he probably didn't think a girl like that would talk to him. So he didn't recognize that the opportunity was there. And that's how perception works, is you can only see what you believe to be possible. And it's actually a really easy principle. The guy doesn't see it because he doesn't believe it's possible. And so here's the way your mind works, Mike, and this is really interesting, is that the reason he doesn't see it is because his mind's not on the lookout for it. I ask people all the time, like, would you go to the end of a rainbow and look for a pot of gold? And they're like, no. I'm like, why not? Because I don't believe it's there. And that's the same way your mind works. Your mind's taking in thousands of bits of information a second. It's not looking out for things that you don't believe are possible. That would be a waste of time or energy. And so that's essentially what goes on, is that, that's why our book is called Seeing is Not Believing, because people say all the time, it's like, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, no, the opposite's true. You will, see it when you believe it, because that's the way your mind works. And so when people say that they want something they don't currently have, well, why don't they currently have it? Because they don't believe it's possible. And well, how do you know that? Because they don't have it already, right? Because they're not in alignment with it, unless they could just go to the store and buy it. But if there's some gap between wanting something and getting something, like, building a business or something, then you have to really get into fostering belief around the things you want.
And also give us some more examples about the perception as well, too. I like what you had first about, a girl flirting with a guy at the counter, and some other situations where you say that, I should have known that.
Right. How about this? And here's the way your mind works, right? I would challenge everybody to think about the car they're driving right now, right? Think about the day you bought that car, or the day you decided you were going to buy that car, right? You got it in your mind, but it's, you go to the dealership, you come home with a new car, and what do you recognize? Wait a second. This car is everywhere, right? It's all over town. Everybody's driving the same car. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, did everybody buy a car today? No, the answer is you didn't see it. Why? Because your mind wasn't looking for it. Those cars were always there, right? And it wasn't until you consciously focused your attention on a particular make and model did you recognize that car is everywhere. And so your mind's only looking for things that are in alignment with what you believe.
And how does one get in alignment, as you're talking about?
So, I have entrepreneurs come up with me all the time, and they ask me this question. How do I create success or a successful business? And I said, here's what you need to do. I said, you need to sit down and you need to map your way from where you are to where you want to go. And I said, it has to be a reasonable scenario. You can't, like, let's say you were trying to go from 1 to 100. You can't be like 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. These have to be real world scenarios. You could say, well, 2 plus 3, and you map your way there, and you can use, scenarios that are already out there. And I said, once you get there in your mind, right? Like, once you believe it's possible, I said, take all the work that you did and throw it away. And they're like, why the hell would I do that? And I'm like, because it's never going to work out that way. The reason you mapped it out was so that you could believe it was possible, right? It's never going to work out that way. And so when you keep that firm idea of what it's supposed to look like, then when it becomes what it is, you think if it doesn't look like what you thought it would be, that you're failing, when in fact, the only part of that exercise was to foster belief inside of you so that your mind will do the work necessary to get there. And here's why, because it's like, would you do something, right, that you thought you knew you were going to fail at if you hadn't promised somebody else you would do it?
Uh-huh.
And the answer is, yeah, no. Why would I do something I know I'm going to fail at if there's no reason I have to do it? Well, your mind works the same way, right? If you don't believe you're going to do it, your mind will distract you from putting the time or energy necessary into getting what you want.
That is fascinating. We'll talk more about the powerful you and how to get in their classes. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with James Purpura, the award-winning director and co-author of Powerful You, Purpura of Perception Seeing is Not Believing on the Mike Wagner Show. We talked more about the movie and how you managed to be inspired to direct the movie, and also to talk about Powerful You as well too. And once again, tell us more about it and how does one person get involved?
Well, so you asked me at the beginning why I wrote the book and the movie, and here's why. Is because there are a couple principles that dictate your life. When you understand those principles, to build a life that you desire is much quicker and easier. And so that's what we did in the book and the movie and A Powerful You, is we tell you the principles that you need to know in order to change and shape your life and to create anything you want. And that's what we're doing. So, that's what I tell people. It's like, well, if you want something different and you don't know how to get it, don't waste your time trying to figure it out. Read our book and our movie and we'll show you how. And, essentially that's what we're doing. But, it's funny, Mike, because, there's so many people with our current state of affairs that are in so much fear right now. And so the question is why, right? Why is there so much fear in the world? And obviously there's a lot going on with everything that's happening around the world. But, what is fear? Why are we in it? And so, that's another thing that we help answer for people is that, we're helping people move out of fear. One of the things we're doing right now is we're giving the movie away for free on our website. You can go watch it there because it will help you move forward. We're going to start doing some free, like peer-to-peer counseling on Facebook Live every single day. We're just trying to help people move out of fear and live the life that they desire.
And how long have you been doing this Powerful You creator?
So about 2 years.
2 years. Nice.
Yeah, 2 years.
And then what were you doing before that? Like say with your other ventures?
So I actually had a worldwide technology company that my wife and I sold. And Powerful You was our way to give back, right? We wanted to, be able to share things with others. But, it was like this. We looked at the world and we asked ourselves this question: is this the world we want our children and grandchildren to grow up in? And the answer is no. So I believe if you have the means, then you have the responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And also too, just another question as well too. And will you be having another similar Powerful You creator in the works down the road in 2020, or what do you have planned in 2020 and 2021?
So, we're not looking into 2021 now. Right now, we're trying to push the book and the movie out. We don't have any live events on the calendar because, nobody does, right? The whole world's shut down. So we'll see what happens there, once that does. But what we're going to actually start doing is doing live events on Facebook soon, where we're bringing speakers in through, Zoom to support people in these difficult times.
And of course, what are some of the common questions you get from people?
Well, oftentimes it's that they feel like they're victims right? They feel like the world is happening to them instead of because of them. And it's like, why don't, people come up to me and go, well, I've got, a manifestation mindset, right? And yet I don't, and yet I don't have any money. And I said, well, that's not actually true then, because if you did, because the underlying principle behind perception is that what you feel and believe on the outside is what you see and experience on the outside. And so what people often miss is that your outward life is an expression of what you feel inside, because life is kind of like a video game. Your mind is projecting your beliefs on the screen of the world, and that's what you're interacting with. So oftentimes people think, well, I know what I need to do. I need to go out and fix things. So they run outside and they start trying to fix their life outside of them. And it's like, that would be the equivalent of being in a movie and going up and slapping the screen to change what's on the projector. When in fact, it's that when you change what you feel and believe on the inside, what you see on the outside changes. And so change only ever starts from within. That's really what the principle that comes down to. But, it's like, well, what do I need to do in order to shift and change? And first thing I tell to people is, well, you need to understand that you're wrong. And they say, well, what am I wrong about? And I'm like, just about everything. And they're like, why do I have to be wrong about everything? And I said, because if you're right about everything, then your life is as good as it's going to get, right? That you have to be able to stand in the not knowing and embrace the fact of being wrong is a good thing, because when you're wrong, there's room for change. When you're wrong, the change starts with a question. So people think that life is all about finding answers, when it was only ever about asking good questions. When you ask the right questions, the answers come along. And so when people convince themselves that, that are trying to stay perfect and trying not to be wrong, we're in a culture and a society that celebrates being right. And that's the worst thing we can do, because nothing interesting starts with an answer. It only ever starts with a question.
That is very interesting. What was the most difficult encounter that you had? Of course, you answer people's comments, questions. What was the most difficult that you ever encountered from a listener, or say someone sent you an email?
Well, it was interesting, because it was like, occasionally I'll get these people to challenge me. And, I was on a radio show a couple of weeks ago, and when the lady called in and she had a live question, she said to me, she goes, well, you're wrong. And I said, well, I'm open to hearing that, but what am I wrong about, right? And she said, I have great self-esteem, and I was given a story about this idea that is that, when you feel good about yourself, that reflects out into the world, and, that you can attract somebody from that space. And she was saying, because I feel great about myself. And I had to tell her, I'm like, well, that's actually not true. And she goes, what do you mean? Who are you to say that? And I said, look, here's the truth. And this is what it comes down to. It's like, what do you believe? And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I don't actually have to ask you that question. I can just look at your life and tell you what you believe about money, relationships, right? Health and fitness, because what's on the inside reflects on the outside. So if you're telling me that you feel one way and your results are another way, then there's a contradiction. But it's not your fault, because the contradiction isn't in your conscious mind. So it's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, 5% of your mental cognition is in your conscious mind. There's 95% of what's going on in your mind is in your subconscious and unconscious mind. So what happens is that those two things are permeating with contradictions. And she was like, well, what does that mean? I said, it means that in your conscious mind, you have one set of beliefs, but in the side of your mind that dictates all of your experience, which is your subconscious and unconscious mind, you have a whole nother set of beliefs that need to be addressed. And I said, if you want to know what's in there, just look at your life. And that is a magnification of what's going on inside of you.
And you talked about those two set of beliefs that seem to be, trying to combine or clashing. And how does it get fixed where it's like these two beliefs, they're fighting with each other. They're just coming into one. And how would you, address, change, or fix that? It's like, how do you make the two come into one?
By understanding that your emotions are a feedback mechanism. So most people think that their emotions are a signal that there's something wrong on the outside. But that couldn't be further from the truth. What your emotions are telling you is there's something that's wrong on the inside. It's pointing to these contradicting beliefs. And so I'll give you an example, Mike. It's like when I came out of that kindergarten experience you talked about, right? Like my teacher called me stupid every day. Everybody in the class called me stupid. It was like, I told myself in my conscious mind, I knew that wasn't true. I'm smart. I'm a smart guy. And so it was like, but if you called me stupid, you could say just about anything you wanted to me and I would just brush it off. But if you called me stupid, I was mad. It was on. And so the question is why? Because your emotions are your window into your subconscious mind. So what happens is that when you have a negative emotional response, that draws attention to the fact that there's a contradiction between what's in your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. And it's bringing that contradiction to light and it's making you angry. But instead, what do we do with emotions? We project them on other people or we repress them. We don't express them and we don't understand they're a feedback mechanism for what's going on deep inside of the dark parts of our mind.
Mm-hmm. And then how do you get rid of that dark emotion, and how do you get that fixed based on your experience? And I've had some people that say, bad experiences like in kindergarten, first grade, second, teacher, kids, principals say stupid, dumb, worthless. It's like, how would you, one person get that fixed like you're saying?
Okay, so here's what happens is when you have a negative emotional reaction, right? Here's what happens is that there's an idea or perception of fear, right? And then there's the physiology of fear. Physiology means in the body. And so, when you get like really scared or anxious and your chest starts hurting or it's in your stomach, that's the physiology of fear. When those two things connect, you are now in a fight or flight state. And so when you're in a fight or flight state, you actually move into a different part of your brain. You've lost connection with the part of your brain that dictates logic and reason. So you can't actually process that when you're in the emotions of fear and that physiology. So essentially, here's what happens. And this is the pattern that plays out with any addictive behavior. Okay. So you move into fear, right? And it's like your body starts going crazy. And you're like, I don't want to feel this pain. So you move away from the pain. Well, because this happened, this is based on a childhood experience, you've set up a pattern to escape that pain. Whether that pattern is anger, whether it's an addiction, whether it's, it can be anything. And so it's like you start engaging in that pattern and then it just plays its way out. Now, here's the opportunity. When you feel fear come up and the physiology comes up, is before you start engaging in the pattern, there's always a pause, right? And anybody who's been an addict or an alcoholic or anything on the phone knows what I'm talking about. It's like, I don't want to do what I'm getting ready to do. Right? But then you do it anyway. And the question is why? It's because you don't longer have contact with the rational part of your brain. So in that pause, there's the opportunity. That pause is because what you're getting ready to do is contrary to what you want to do in your conscious mind. And so what your unconscious mind is overrunning your conscious mind because you no longer have access to it. So in that pause, you have the option of actually changing your physiology out of fight or flight into a cohesive, rational state. And the way you do that is actually breathing. Because you got to think about it. When we were fighting for our survival, when we were running from a predator or fighting a predator, right? What happened is that when we're in fight or flight mode, the signal our brain to take back control and get out of our reactionary state is once the fight was over, we had to catch our breath, right? And so the breath is when you breathe deeply into your heart sends a signal to your brain. Most people don't know this, but your heart sends more signals to your brain than the other way around. Sends a signal to your brain that, hey, it's time to move back into the rational part of your brain and out of fight or flight. So when that pause happens, the way out is you have to start breathing deeply to separate the perception of fear from the physiology of it. Once the physiological response starts tailing off, then you actually have the option to process that fear and go, you know what, this is a belief that I had when I was 5 years old. It doesn't make sense for me anymore. Why do I still believe it? And you throw it away. Now, does it come up again? Sometimes, yes, sometimes no, but you do that process enough times, and then the belief just goes away because you're able to breathe through that, question it, feel the emotion. But here's the other thing that most people don't realize is that because we learn through pain, you brought this up at the beginning, it was very keen, is that even though I just told people that, they're still going to act out their pattern. And here's why. Because we need to escape the pain. But once you become aware that this pain and this pain aren't connected or related, this pain comes up and then you're running out the pattern and the pattern's causing more pain. Once you understand those things are connected, then what happens is that you start to become aware of that the amount of pain that you're running through the pattern of addiction or whatever else is greater than the pain of breathing through that emotional trauma, right? And then your mind will always move towards the least amount of pain. And that's what allows you to get in a space where you can do it. So the first step is to be aware of when you're emotionally triggered, something's going on the outside, you're getting ready to act out something, whether it be anger or aggression or a addiction that's contrary to what you want to believe. There's going to be a pause. And in that pause, you have a moment where you can reflect on, well, what am I going to do here? And if you move into the pattern, you have to be aware of what damage moving into the pattern causes. So your conscious mind goes, I don't want to do that again. And it deals with the pain here. And so I tell addicts all the time, it's like, why are you addicted? And they're like, what do you mean? Because I'm an addict. No, that's not why. Because you're trying to escape something. What are you trying to escape? And that's it. It's the fear. And so it's not until you can separate the perception from the physiology can you process the fear properly.
You mentioned something about addiction when it comes to drugs, alcohol, and whatever else. And how useful would this powerful you creator be? Like, say, in groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, or say with whatever. I'm trying to think. There's other groups out there, like, say, Stop Smoking, or any other chemical addiction, like these groups. I mean, AA and springing across, and how would that be beneficial to such groups like these?
So once you understand fear, and that your addiction is in fact an escape from fear, right? And so here's the inherent problems that these groups have, is that they're not getting rid of the thing you need to escape from. They're only learning to manage it, right? And that's why if somebody goes off the deep end and has a drink, that they go into full blown, they go right back into their old patterns, because the belief that was driving the addiction is still in place. And so it would have a profound effect, because what people need to understand is that if you can eliminate the belief that is driving the behavior, then there's nothing left to drive the behavior. And so you move out of a stage of white knuckling it into a stage of healing or, evolution. Now, I'm not suggesting, that alcoholics should have some hope of drinking again. That's not the point. The point is that, the reason change is so hard, and this example goes straight across the board, is because here's what happens is because people believe that change is about habits. Okay. And so it's like, well, what does AA do? And teaching you to change the habits that, get you into drinking. And so it's like, that's great. But here's what happens is that 90% of change fails. And here's why. And it's because when you change the habit and you don't change the belief that's driving the behavior, right? Then if you don't change that belief by accident while you're changing the habit, then the second you take your conscious attention off the changing of the habits, the belief comes in and resets the behavior. And that's why so many people gain the weight back after they lose the weight. It's like, I did this 7 times. I lost 40 pounds 7 times. It's like, I was obsessed with this question. How come I keep regaining the weight back? And the idea is this. It's because I didn't shift the belief that was driving my unhealthy relationship with food. And so when you shift the belief, then the behavior is very easy to change. If you don't, then you're white knuckling it, and the belief is always lurking, waiting for a weak moment to reset the behavior.
So it sounds like just shifting the beliefs is pretty much almost like the root of of all behavior. So all you do is just like shift the belief or get rid of the root. That's a pretty much from what it sounds like is pretty much the ultimate change for the good to what you really want to become, if I'm getting this right.
So have you heard this narrative out there how everybody says we don't have free will?
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, okay. So here's why they say it. There's one core program that dictates our human experience, that you can only act in accordance with your beliefs. So if you're acting in accordance with your beliefs, then you don't have free will. And they're right about that, because free will isn't the way you think it is because you can only act in accordance with your beliefs. But here's the part they don't tell you: based on your current physiological state. So the answer is yes. So I don't have free will, because anytime I get into a situation, what do I go to dictate what I'm going to decide to do? And it's my beliefs, right? What do I believe is going to happen? And I make the best decision I can with the information that's available to me. And so we don't have free will in the moment like most people think we do, because you can only act in accordance with your beliefs. Now, here's where free will comes in. And this is the power of what I'm saying, Mike, is that you can actually change your beliefs. And so when you change your beliefs, you are changing the information that your future self is going to act on. So free will is all about going in and changing things that you decided in the past, not to impact the present, to impact what you're going to do in the future. So that's the core program. You can only act in accordance with your beliefs. If you don't change the belief, then you will keep in the patterns that you're currently living over and over and over again.
That is amazing, too. And I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. And just a few more minutes with award-winning director and co-author James Purpura of Perception Seeing is Believing. And how can people purchase a book, and where can people watch the movie, and how can people get involved in such a program like yours?
So we have our website. It's called Powerful, the letter U. It's powerful-u.com. The movie screening there for free. We're going to screen it through the rest of this, whatever the world's going through, this virus scare, this virus idea. And once that's over, we'll probably start charging again. But we got the movie, we got the book. You can get it at powerful-u.com. We have the Powerful Universe, which is a subscription service that will give you all the coaching you need. And we have lots of products and services. We have an assessment to support you. But it's all based at our website, powerful-u.com.
That is fantastic. James, I just want to say a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. You definitely taught me a lot, so I'm going to have to start changing my beliefs here. So, get the book and get the movie and everything. Looking forward to having you back again soon. Do us a favor, keep us up to date, and love to have you back. We can talk more about the program and everything else and the results on people.
That's great, Mike. Hey, I appreciate your time today, man. It was a pleasure being on your show.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.